Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to have your entire life unravel with just 5 words? To have every secret you've buried, every identity you've crafted, every lie you've lived exposed in a single moment? What if the person who discovered your truth was the one man powerful enough to destroy you or dangerous enough to save you? This is the story of Zara Williams, a woman who thought she had successfully buried her past, reinvented herself, and escaped the shadows that once consumed her life. For 3 years, she had been nothing more than a talented bartender at one of Chicago's most exclusive restaurants, mixing drinks with an artist's precision while keeping her head down and her secrets closer. But fate has a cruel sense of humor, and sometimes the very thing you're running from is exactly what finds you when you least expect it. It was a rain-soaked Thursday evening in November when everything changed. The kind of night where the city lights blurred through water-streaked windows and the cold seeped through every layer of clothing. La Bella Vista was packed with its usual crowd of wealthy patrons, business moguls closing deals over aged whiskey, and socialites pretending their marriages weren't falling apart over champagne. Zara moved behind the bar with practiced efficiency, her movements fluid and precise, her smile professional but never reaching her eyes. She had perfected the art of being invisible while in plain sight. Her natural hair was pulled back in an elegant, low bun, her makeup minimal but flawless, highlighting her deep brown skin that seemed to glow under the restaurant's warm lighting. The long-sleeved black shirt she wore was intentional, as it had been every day for the past 3 years. It covered what needed to stay hidden, protected secrets that could never see the light. That's when he walked in. Dante Moretti didn't just enter a room, he commanded it. The entire atmosphere shifted the moment he stepped through La Bella Vista's doors, conversations quieting to whispers, heads turning with a mixture of fear and fascination. 6 feet 3 inches of controlled power in a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. He moved with the lethal grace of a predator who knew he sat at the top of the food chain. Zara's hands stilled on the martini she was preparing. She knew who he was. Everyone in Chicago knew Dante Moretti. The youngest Don to ever take control of the Moretti crime family, he had transformed their operations from old-school brutality to sophisticated enterprises that touched everything from real estate to technology. But underneath the veneer of legitimacy, everyone understood the truth. Cross Dante Moretti, and you wouldn't live long enough to regret it. Their eyes met across the crowded restaurant, and something electric passed between them. His were the color of aged whiskey, sharp and assessing, seeing everything while revealing nothing. For a moment that stretched like eternity, Zara forgot to breathe. Then his lips curved in the slightest smile, and he began walking directly toward the bar. "Stay calm," she whispered to herself, resuming her work with hands that wanted to tremble. "You're nobody. Just another bartender. He doesn't know you." But Dante Moretti moved like a man with purpose, and that purpose seemed to be her. He settled onto the bar stool directly in front of her, his presence immediately creating a bubble of space as other patrons instinctively moved away. Up close, he was even more intimidating. The kind of devastating handsome that belonged in Renaissance paintings, with sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw darkened by designer stubble, and those eyes that seemed to see through every defense she had built. "Whiskey," he said, his voice deep and smooth like aged bourbon. "Neat. Your best." Zara nodded, turning to retrieve the 50-year-old Macallan they kept for their most distinguished guests. She could feel his gaze on her as she moved, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle with awareness. Her fingers wrapped around the bottle, and she poured with steady hands despite the chaos in her chest. "You're new," he said as she set the glass before him. 3 years, she replied, keeping her voice neutral. "Hardly new. New to me." He lifted the glass, inhaling the aroma before taking a sip. "And I make it my business to know everyone who works in places I frequent. Perhaps you haven't frequented here enough." A ghost of amusement flickered across his features. "Perhaps." He took another sip, his eyes never leaving her face. "What's your name?" "Zara." "Just Zara?" "Just Zara is enough for mixing drinks, but not enough for me." The words were soft, but they carried the weight of command. This was a man who didn't ask twice for anything. "Williams," she conceded. "Zara Williams. Zara Williams." He rolled her name around like he was tasting it, testing it for truth. "Beautiful name for a beautiful woman. Tell me, Zara Williams, where did you learn to pour a perfect whiskey without measuring?" "Practice." "Where?" Various places. His smile grew slightly, showing just a hint of perfect white teeth. You're very careful with your words. I'm very careful with everything, Mr. Moretti. So, you know who I am. It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. Everyone knows who you are, but not everyone looks at me the way you do. Zara's pulse quickened. How do I look at you? Like you're deciding whether I'm more dangerous to you as an enemy or as a friend. The truth of his observation sent ice through her veins, but she kept her expression neutral. Maybe I'm just deciding whether you're a good tipper. He laughed then, a rich sound that drew attention from nearby tables. Reaching into his jacket, he pulled out a money clip and set $500 bills on the bar. For your thoughts. My thoughts aren't that interesting. I'll be the judge of that. He stood, his full height, making her feel small despite the bar between them. I'll be back tomorrow night. Zara Williams. Wear something with shorter sleeves. You must be burning up in this heat. The words were casual, but his eyes dropped deliberately to her covered arms before returning to her face. The message was clear. He had noticed. He was curious. And Dante Moretti's curiosity was a dangerous thing to attract. After he left, taking his entourage of bodyguards who had been positioned strategically throughout the restaurant, Zara's carefully maintained composure finally cracked. Her hands shook as she collected the bills he'd left, her mind racing through possibilities, none of them good. She had worked so hard to disappear, to become someone new, someone invisible. The tattoo hidden beneath her sleeve wasn't just ink on skin. It was a brand, a history, a death sentence if the wrong people discovered it. And now she had caught the attention of possibly the most dangerous man in Chicago. The next night, Zara considered not showing up for her shift. She had enough money saved to run again, to find another city, another identity. But running would raise questions. And questions would lead to investigations. And investigations would uncover things that needed to stay buried. So she went to work, wearing the same long-sleeved shirt, the same professional smile, the same mask of calm indifference. Dante arrived at exactly 8 o'clock, this time alone except for one bodyguard who positioned himself near the entrance. He took the same seat at the bar, ordered the same whiskey, and studied her with those penetrating eyes that seemed to strip away every defense. You didn't take my suggestion about the sleeves, he observed. I don't take fashion advice from customers. I'm not just a customer, am I? The question hung between them, loaded with implications she didn't want to examine. You're a man who drinks expensive whiskey and leaves excessive tips. I'm a man who recognizes secrets when he sees them. He leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping to an intimate level that made her stomach flip. And you, Zara Williams, are full of secrets. Everyone has secrets. Not everyone has secrets worth hiding under long sleeves in a kitchen that runs 90 degrees. Her hand instinctively moved to her covered wrist, before she caught herself, but his sharp eyes tracked the movement. Some people are just modest. Modesty is covering your chest or your legs. This, he gestured to her arms, this is concealment. Does it matter? Everything matters when it comes to people who interest me. And you, despite your best efforts to be forgettable, are very interesting. A group of loud businessmen entered the restaurant, demanding attention and drinks, giving Zara an excuse to escape his intense scrutiny. But she could feel his eyes following her as she worked, cataloging every movement, every interaction, every tell she might not know she had. This became their routine for the next 2 weeks. He would arrive at 8, order whiskey, and spend an hour verbally sparring with her while she tried to maintain professional distance. Each night, his questions grew more pointed, his observations more accurate, the tension between them crackling like electricity before a storm. Tell me about your family. Nothing to tell. I don't have one. Everyone comes from somewhere. Some of us prefer to focus on where we're going rather than where we've been. And where are you going, Zara? Nowhere. I'm exactly where I want to be. His eyes narrowed slightly. No one wants to be a bartender forever. Maybe I'm not like everyone else. Oh, I'm certain of that. He traced the rim of his glass with one finger, a gesture that shouldn't have been sensual but somehow was. You move like someone who's been trained. Military? Dance? Or something else entirely? I took ballet as a child, she lied smoothly. Ballet doesn't teach you to catalog every exit in a room or position yourself to watch all angles of approach. Her heart skipped, but she forced a laugh. You're seeing things that aren't there. I'm seeing things you're trying to hide. There's a difference. That night, after closing, Zara seriously considered running. She had contacts who could provide new papers, a new identity. She could be someone else by morning, disappear into the vast anonymity of another city. But something kept her rooted in place. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was exhaustion from running. Or maybe it was the way Dante looked at her, like she was a puzzle he was determined to solve, but also like she was something precious he wanted to protect. The thought was ridiculous. Dante Moretti didn't protect anyone but his own, and she was definitely not his own. Everything changed on a Friday night 3 weeks after their first meeting. The restaurant was hosting a private event for some of Chicago's elite, and Zara was working the main bar when chaos erupted. A man she didn't recognize grabbed a waitress, pressing a knife to her throat, screaming about money he was owed, about respect, about messages that needed sending. The room froze. Security started moving, but they were too far away. The angle wrong. The man was nervous, high on something, his hand shaking as the knife pressed against the young woman's skin. Zara saw the trajectory before it happened. His trembling would cause him to cut. The girl would bleed out before help arrived. She moved without thinking, muscle memory taking over. The knife she kept behind the bar for cutting fruit sailed through the air with deadly precision, embedding itself in the man's shoulder. He screamed, dropping his weapon and the hostage, clutching at the wound. Security swarmed him immediately. But Zara realized her mistake the moment she saw Dante's face across the room. He wasn't looking at the subdued attacker or the crying waitress. He was looking at her, at the way she stood, at the practiced ease with which she had thrown that knife with professional accuracy. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes burned with intensity. "Everyone out," he commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Now." The room emptied with remarkable speed, even the security team dragging the wounded attacker away. Within minutes, it was just Dante and Zara in the suddenly cavernous space. He walked toward her slowly, deliberately, like a big cat stalking prey. "That was an interesting throw." "Lucky," she said, but her voice came out rougher than intended. "No." He stopped directly in front of the bar. "That was trained. Professional. Where did you learn to throw a knife like that?" "YouTube." His hand shot out faster than she could react, grabbing her wrist in a grip that was firm but not painful. "Don't lie to me. Let go. Not until you tell me the truth." His thumb pressed against her pulse point, feeling her racing heartbeat. "Who are you really?" "I told you. Zara Williams." "Zara Williams doesn't exist before 3 years ago." His grip shifted slightly. "I had my people look into you. Very thorough people. You appeared out of nowhere, fully formed, with a perfect but thin history. New identity, new life, new everything. So I'll ask again, who are you?" She tried to pull away, but his grip was iron. In the struggle, her sleeve rode up just an inch, but it was enough. His eyes locked onto the exposed skin, onto the edge of black ink that marked her wrist. "No," she breathed, real fear entering her voice for the first time. But Dante's free hand was already pushing up her sleeve, revealing the tattoo in its entirety. It was beautiful and terrible, a work of art that told a story in symbols and Latin phrases. A phoenix rising from flames, wrapped around her forearm, with letters woven into the design that would mean nothing to most people. But Dante Moretti wasn't most people. His body went completely still, his eyes fixed on the tattoo with an expression of shock she had never seen on his controlled features. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Corvus Nigra, the Black Raven." The name hit her like a physical blow. No one in Chicago should know that name. No one alive should recognize this tattoo. "I know who you really are," Dante said, his grip on her wrist gentling but not releasing. "You're the ghost. The assassin who disappeared 3 years ago after killing Vincent Torino. The woman every family on the East Coast wants dead." Zara's free hand moved toward the gun she kept hidden beneath the bar, but Dante caught that wrist too, effectively trapping her. "I'm not going to hurt you." "Then let me go." "Can't do that either." His thumbs stroked over her pulse points, the gesture oddly soothing, despite the circumstances. "Do you have any idea how many people are looking for you? How much money is on your head?" "Yes." "Then you know I can't just let you walk away." "So what?" You're going to collect the bounty? Add to your fortune by selling me to my enemies? Something shifted in his expression, a darkness that made her breath catch. Your enemies? The families I worked against. The people whose loved ones I... She cut herself off, unable to say the words aloud. The people whose loved ones you killed under orders, as a weapon wielded by others. His voice held no judgment, only statement of fact. Tell me, Ghost. Who held your leash? She tried to pull away again, but he held firm. It doesn't matter. It matters because Vincent Torino was my uncle. Ice flooded her veins. She had killed Dante Moretti's uncle. He didn't just have reason to turn her in, he had reason to kill her himself. But, he continued, his voice thoughtful, Vincent Torino was also a traitor who was selling family secrets to the Russians. His death saved my family from destruction, though no one knew it at the time. We thought it was a rival family's hit, never suspected it was a sanctioned assassination from within. How did you... I know about the Corvus Nigra. My grandfather told me stories, back when the organization was more myth than reality. A shadow group that maintains balance between the families, prevents wars, eliminates threats to stability. They recruit young, train them from childhood, create perfect weapons, and they mark their assassins with that tattoo, a brand of ownership and a promise of death if they ever try to leave. Then you know why I ran. I know why you had to. His grip shifted, and suddenly he was holding her hands rather than restraining her wrists. What I don't know is why you stayed in Chicago. You had to know this was dangerous territory for you. Every territory is dangerous for me. At least here I could blend in, become nobody important. You could never be nobody important. The words were soft, intense, carrying more weight than they should. I've been watching you for 3 weeks. Zara, or whatever your real name is. You're extraordinary. The way you move, the way you think, the way you've rebuilt yourself from nothing. You're magnificent. I'm a killer. So am I. He lifted one of her hands, studying the exposed tattoo with fascination rather than revulsion. We're all killers in this life, Bella. The only difference is some of us choose it, and some have it chosen for us. What do you want from me? Initially, I wanted to solve the puzzle of you. Now, his eyes met hers, and the heat in them made her stomach flip. Now I want to keep you safe. Why would you do that? Because the moment you walked into my line of sight, you became mine to protect. His thumb traced the phoenix on her wrist. And because I understand what it's like to be trapped by a life you didn't choose, to carry deaths that haunt you, to want something more but not know how to reach for it. You don't know me. I know enough. He released her hands but didn't step back. I know you've been alone for 3 years, looking over your shoulder, waiting for death to find you. I know you're tired of running but afraid to stop. I know you're strong enough to survive anything but starving for someone to share the burden. Tears she hadn't shed in years threatened to fall. And what? You're offering to be that someone. I'm offering you protection. A place in my organization where your skills would be valued but your past would be buried. I'm offering you the chance to stop running. In exchange for what? In exchange for honesty. No more lies between us. No more hiding. He gestured to her covered arms. No more long sleeves when what you really want is to be free. Freedom doesn't exist for people like me. It does if you're strong enough to take it. And you, Ghost, are the strongest woman I've ever met. You don't know what I've done. Tell me. And suddenly, she wanted to. The weight of 3 years of silence, of carrying her sins alone, was crushing her. My name is Amara, she whispered. Amara Blackwood. And I've killed 43 people. Dante didn't flinch. Why? Because I was taken when I was 7. My parents were killed in what was staged to look like a car accident, but was really an acquisition. The Corvus Nigra needed children with certain qualities, intelligence, physical potential, psychological profiles that suggested we could be molded. They trained us, broke us down, and rebuilt us as weapons. By the time I was 17, I was one of their best. What changed? I was assigned to kill a child. Her voice broke. A 10-year-old boy whose father had betrayed one of the families. The order was to kill the whole bloodline, leave no loose ends. I couldn't do it. I got the boy out, set him up with a new identity, then killed Vincent Torino as my last act before disappearing. I knew they'd come for me, but I couldn't become that. I couldn't kill children. The boy? Safe. living in Seattle with a family who thinks he's their adopted son from foster care. I check on him sometimes, from a distance. Dante studied her for a long moment, then made a decision that would change both their lives. Monday morning, you start working directly for me, not as a bartender, but as my personal security consultant. Your past stays buried, but your skills get used to protect rather than destroy. And if the Corvus Nigra comes for me, then they go through me first. The statement was simple, but the weight behind it was enormous. Dante Moretti had just declared war on one of the most dangerous shadow organizations in existence, all for a woman he'd known 3 weeks. Why? She asked again. Because from the moment I saw you, something in me recognized something in you. 2 damaged souls trying to be better than what we were made to be. He reached out, slowly enough that she could stop him, and touched her face. And because you're mine, whether you accept it yet or not, I belong to no one. No, he agreed. You belong with someone. There's a difference. And you belong with me. Before she could respond, his phone rang. The sharp sound shattered the moment, and his expression darkened as he looked at the screen. Yes? She couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but she saw the way his body tensed, the way his free hand automatically went to the gun beneath his jacket. How many? A pause. How did they find? Never mind. Lock down the building. No one in or out until I get there. He ended the call and looked at her with grim determination. We have a problem. What kind of problem? The kind where 6 assassins just entered my territory, asking questions about a female bartender with hidden tattoos. Her blood turned to ice. They found me. They found where you work. They haven't found you yet. He pulled out his phone again, firing off rapid texts. My car will be here in 2 minutes. You're coming with me. I can't involve you in this. You're already involved me. He grabbed her coat from behind the bar, helping her into it with surprising gentleness. The moment they entered my territory without permission, they declared war. The fact that they're hunting you just makes it personal. Dante, you don't understand. The Corvus Nigra doesn't leave witnesses. If you protect me, they'll come for your entire family. Let them come. His smile was sharp and dangerous. They think they're hunters, but they're about to learn what it means to enter a wolf's territory. A black SUV screeched to a stop outside the restaurant's back entrance. Dante's hand settled on her lower back, guiding her toward it. Get in. Where are we going? Somewhere safe. Somewhere defensible. Somewhere I can keep you protected while we deal with this threat. She climbed into the SUV, her mind racing. 3 years of running, of hiding, of being nobody. And it all came crashing down because she couldn't let an innocent girl die. But as Dante settled beside her, his presence solid and reassuring, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope. They'll keep coming, she warned him as the vehicle pulled away from the restaurant. Then they'll keep dying. He took her hand, the one with the tattoo, and traced the phoenix with his thumb. You rose from the ashes once, Bella. Now let me help you burn bright. The SUV wound through Chicago's streets, taking a circuitous route that would lose any potential tail. Zara Amara watched the city blur past, feeling like she was in a dream. This morning she had been a bartender with a hidden past. Now she was under the protection of one of the most powerful crime bosses in America, heading toward an uncertain future. Tell me about them, Dante said quietly. The 6 who are hunting you, what are their specialties? She closed her eyes, accessing memories she'd tried to bury. If they sent 6, it's a full extraction team. 2 trackers, 2 combat specialists, 1 tech expert, and 1 commander. They'll be systematic, thorough. They've probably already pulled surveillance footage from every camera in a 10-block radius of the restaurant. My people are handling the digital footprint. What else? They'll have studied my patterns from before. My preferences, my habits, my weaknesses. They'll know I'm right-handed, but shoot better with my left. They'll know I have a soft spot for children and animals. They'll know I prefer high ground and always keep my back to walls. What won't they know? She looked at him, this dangerous man who had inserted himself into her deadly situation without hesitation. They won't know about you. The old me would never have accepted help, never have trusted anyone enough to let them close. And the new you? The new me is apparently insane enough to trust a mafia boss with her life. His laugh was dark and rich. Sanity is overrated, Bella. The SUV pulled into an underground garage beneath a gleaming high-rise in the Gold Coast district. Armed men materialized from shadows, creating a protective perimeter as Dante led her to a private elevator. "The penthouse is a fortress," he explained as they rose through the floors. "Bulletproof glass, reinforced walls, multiple escape routes. No one gets in without my permission. And if they try, then they'll discover why the Moretti family has survived 5 generations in this business." The elevator opened directly into his penthouse, and Amara's breath caught. The space was massive, all clean lines and dark elegance, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of Chicago's skyline. But she noticed the tactical advantages first: multiple sight lines, defensive positions, exits disguised as architectural features. "You designed this for war," she observed. "I designed it for survival. In my world, they're often the same thing." He moved to a concealed panel in the wall, revealing an arsenal that would make most military units envious. "Choose what you need." She selected a Glock 19 and a tactical knife, the weight of them familiar and comforting. "You know this changes everything. Once the killing starts, it won't stop until either they're all dead or we are. Then we make sure we're the ones left standing." He pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. "I'm calling in my lieutenants, Marco, Tony, and Salvatore. They need to know what we're facing. You're trusting them with this? I'm trusting them with you. There's a difference." He looked up from his phone. "These men would die for me, which means they'll die protecting you. I don't want anyone dying for me." "Too bad." He crossed to where she stood by the windows, the city lights painting patterns across her skin. "You're under my protection now. That's not negotiable. Everything's negotiable. Not this." His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing across her cheekbone. "Not you." The moment stretched between them, charged with possibilities and danger. Then his phone buzzed, breaking the spell. "They're here," he said, and moments later, 3 men entered the penthouse. She recognized them from her research before taking the bartending job, Dante's inner circle, each dangerous in their own right. Marco, the enforcer with scarred hands and cold eyes. Tony, the strategist who could plan a war like others planned dinner parties. Salvatore, the younger one with the quick smile and quicker trigger finger. "Gentlemen," Dante said, "meet Amara Blackwood. She's under our protection." Marco's eyes narrowed. "The ghost? I'm harboring the woman who eliminated Vincent Torino before he could sell us all out to the Russians," Dante interrupted. "The woman who saved this family without us even knowing we needed saving." "She's Corvus Nigra," Tony said quietly. "That's a death sentence for all of us. Then we'd better make sure we're better at dealing death than they are." Dante's tone brooked no argument. 6 assassins entered our territory without permission. They're hunting someone under my protection. What's our response?" "We hunt them first," Salvatore said with a grin that was all teeth. "I've got eyes on the streets. They're being subtle, but not invisible. They've set up in 3 teams of 2, covering the major districts." "They're trying to flush me out," Amara said. "Standard protocol. Make enough noise that I have to move, then grab me in transit." "Except you're not running," Dante said firmly. "We're going on offense. Marco, I want our best soldiers mobilized. Tony, coordinate with our contacts in the police. I want those 6 flagged as terrorists if they so much as jaywall. Sal, you're on Overwatch. I want to know every move they make." The 3 men nodded and dispersed to handle their assignments, leaving Dante and Amara alone again. "You're starting a war for someone you barely know," she said softly. "I'm preventing a war by protecting what's mine." He moved closer, backing her against the window. "And you are mine, whether you've accepted it or not. You can't just claim people, Dante. I'm not claiming you. I'm recognizing what's already there." His hand came up to trace the edge of her tattoo through her sleeve. "You feel it too. This connection, this pull. From the moment we met, it's been inevitable. Nothing's inevitable. We are." He leaned in, his breath warm against her ear. "You can fight it all you want, Bella, but you're already mine. And I protect what's mine with everything I have." Before she could respond, gunfire erupted from the street below. Dante immediately pulled her away from the window, shielding her with his body as they moved to cover. "Status," he barked into his phone. 2 of them tried to breach the garage. Marco's voice came through the speaker. "They're down." But it was a distraction. The other 4 are moving. Where? Unknown. We lost visual. Amara's mind raced through possibilities. They're already inside, she said with cold certainty. The 2 in the garage were meant to draw attention. The others used the chaos to infiltrate. Dante's eyes hardened. The service elevator. They moved together, weapons drawn, their footsteps silent on the marble floors. Dante's hand signals directed her to one side of the service entrance while he took the other. The elevator numbers were climbing 42, 43, 44. 4 assassins, confined space, she murmured. They'll come out hot, expecting resistance. Then we give them what they expect. Dante pulled a grenade from a concealed drawer, making her eyebrows rise. What? A man needs hobbies. Despite everything, she found herself smiling. Your hobby is collecting military-grade explosives? Among other things. The elevator reached their floor. Ready? Always. The doors opened, and chaos erupted. The assassins came out firing, but Dante's grenade, a flashbang, not explosive, had already rolled inside. The confined space amplified the effect, leaving them disoriented and vulnerable. Amara moved like water, like death itself, her body remembering every hour of training, every lesson beaten into her bones. Her knife found the first assassin's throat before he could recover his sight. Her appropriated gun dropped the second with 2 shots to center mass. Dante handled the third with brutal efficiency, his movements speaking of his own deadly training. But the fourth, the commander was already recovering, his gun swinging toward Dante's exposed back. Time slowed. Amara saw the trajectory, the inevitable outcome. Without thinking, she threw herself forward, taking the bullet meant for Dante. Pain exploded through her shoulder, spinning her around, but her gun hand remained steady. 3 shots, tight grouping, and the commander crumpled. Amara! Dante caught her as she stumbled, his hands immediately going to the wound. You stupid, brave, magnificent woman. Couldn't let him shoot you, she gasped. You're my protection, remember? And you're mine to protect. Not the other way around. He was already on his phone, barking orders for medical attention. Don't you dare die on me. We're not done yet. Takes more than 1 bullet to stop a ghost. She managed, though the edges of her vision were going dark. Stay with me, Bella. Stay with me. His voice followed her down into unconsciousness, an anchor in the darkness that promised she wouldn't drift away entirely. She woke in stages, awareness returning slowly. First came the pain, a dull ache in her shoulder that spoke of good drugs and better medical care. Then came the sensory details, soft sheets, the subtle beep of monitoring equipment, sunlight warm on her face. Finally came the realization that she wasn't alone. Dante sat beside her bed, his hand wrapped around hers, his head bowed as if in prayer or exhaustion. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, his usually perfect appearance disheveled, stubble darkening his jaw. How long? She croaked. His head snapped up, relief flooding his features. 3 days. You lost a lot of blood. The others? Dead. All 6 of them. His grip on her hand tightened. You saved my life. You saved mine first. Then we're even. No, she said softly. You gave me something to fight for besides survival. That's worth more than just saving a life. He brought her hand to his lips, kissing the exposed tattoo with reverence. When you're healed, we're having that tattoo modified. What? You're not their ghost anymore. You're not their weapon. If you're going to carry a mark, it should be one you choose, not one they forced on you. Tears slipped down her cheeks. And what mark would I choose? Whatever represents your new life, your freedom, your choice to stop running and start living. With you, if you'll have me. His eyes were vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. I know I'm not an easy man to love. My world is violent, dangerous, but I swear to you, Amara, you'll never face that danger alone again. You'll never have to run again. You'll never have to hide who you are. I don't even know who I am anymore. I've been other people for so long. Then we'll figure it out together. He stood, leaning over to kiss her forehead with surprising gentleness. Rest now. Heal. When you're ready, your new life is waiting. Recovery took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of Dante hovering protectively, of his men treating her with a mixture of respect and awe, of slowly accepting that she was safe, protected, Wanted. The Corvus Nigra sent no more assassins. The message had been received. The ghost was under Moretti protection, and the cost of retrieving her was too high. On the day she was cleared for normal activity, Dante took her to his private tattoo artist. The man was a true artist, able to transform the phoenix that marked her as property into something new. He kept the bird but changed its position, making it look like it was soaring free rather than trapped in flames. The Latin phrases that had marked her as Corvus Nigra were covered with new words: libertas, fortis, amata, freedom, strength, loved. It's beautiful, she breathed when it was complete. You're beautiful, Dante corrected, his fingers gently tracing the new design. This is just ink on skin. You're the one who transformed yourself. That night, in his penthouse with the city lights sparkling below, they finally gave in to the attraction that had been building since that first night in the restaurant. His hands were gentle on her healing shoulder, reverent on her new tattoo, possessive everywhere else. He mapped every scar, every mark that told the story of her survival, and replaced them with new memories of pleasure instead of pain. Mine, he growled against her skin, and this time she didn't argue. Yours, she agreed, then added with a smile, and you're mine, always. They moved together with the fluid grace of two predators who had found their match, their bodies speaking truths their words had danced around for weeks. When release claimed them, it was with the intensity of a covenant sealed, a promise made flesh. Afterward, as they lay entwined, Amara traced lazy patterns on Dante's chest. What happens now? Now you become what you were always meant to be, not a ghost, not a weapon, but a queen. My queen. Queens don't usually have body counts in the double digits. In our world, they do. He captured her hand, kissing her palm. You'll help me protect this family, this territory. Your skills, but used for defense rather than assassination. Your choice, always your choice, but never alone. And if the past comes calling again, then we face it together. That's what love is, Bella. Not the absence of danger, but the promise to face it together. Love. The word hung between them, heavy with meaning. I don't know if I know how to love, she admitted. They trained that out of me. They tried, he corrected. But you saved that boy instead of killing him. You took a bullet for me. You already know how to love, Amara. You just need to let yourself feel it. She thought about that, about the way her heart raced when he smiled, about the peace she felt in his presence, about the future that suddenly seemed possible instead of just survivable. I love you, she said, testing the words, finding them true. And I love you, he replied immediately. Have since the moment you told me you were careful with everything. I knew then that you were exactly what I'd been waiting for. Someone who understood the weight of violence, the cost of power, the price of survival. 6 months later, Amara stood in La Bella Vista, but this time she wasn't behind the bar. She was at Dante's side as he addressed a gathering of family leaders, establishing new treaties, new boundaries, new rules for their world. Her presence sent a message the ghost was now a Moretti, and her skills were part of their arsenal. Some of the older Dons were skeptical, dismissive of a woman in their male-dominated world. That skepticism died when she casually mentioned details about their operations that only someone with her training could know, when she identified the 3 rival family assassins who had infiltrated the gathering before even Dante's security noticed them. Gentlemen, Dante said with a smile that was all teeth, my wife has something to say about the proposed territory agreements. Wife. The word still sent warmth through her chest. They'd married in a small ceremony a month prior, just family and the closest lieutenants. She'd worn a dress that left her arms bare, her transformed tattoo visible for all to see. No more hiding, no more long sleeves, no more pretending to be less than she was. The agreements are acceptable, she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had once been the shadow that haunted their nightmares, with modifications to sections 3 and 7. The current language leaves loopholes that could be exploited to justify territorial expansion without proper consensus. She laid out the issues with surgical precision, her analysis sharp and undeniable. When she finished, even the skeptics were nodding approval. She had been trained to understand the criminal world from the inside out, to know how these men thought, what they valued, what they feared. Now she used that knowledge to help Dante strengthen his position, to build something lasting. After the meeting, as they rode home in the bulletproof car that had become their normal, Dante took her hand. "You were magnificent. I was honest." They needed to hear it. They needed to see that the Moretti family is evolving, that we're stronger now than ever. Because of me? Because of us. He pulled her close, his lips brushing her ear. Together, we're unstoppable. And they were. Over the following year, the Moretti family's influence grew, but so did their legitimate enterprises. Amara's strategic mind, freed from the narrow focus of assassination, bloomed into something extraordinary. She identified opportunities, eliminated threats, and slowly transformed their operations into something that existed in the gray between legal and illegal. Powerful, but sustainable. But the past has a way of refusing to stay buried. It came in the form of a package delivered to the penthouse. No return address, no delivery record. Inside was a single photograph, the boy she'd saved instead of killed, now 13, smiling at a school science fair where he'd won first place. The message was clear. They knew her weakness. "It's a trap," Dante said immediately. "Of course it is." She stared at the photo, at the innocent face she'd chosen over orders. "But it's also a threat. They'll hurt him if I don't come." "Then we go together." "Dante." "No." His voice was iron. "We face everything together." That was the promise. The meeting was set for neutral ground, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Amara knew it was likely where she would die, but she went anyway. Some things were worth dying for. The boy's innocence was one of them, but Dante had made his own preparations. When they arrived at the warehouse, it wasn't just the two of them. The entire Moretti family army was positioned strategically around the building. Marco, Tony, and Salvatore led squads of their best soldiers. The message was clear. Threaten one, Moretti. Threaten them all. Inside the warehouse, a figure waited in the shadows. When he stepped into the light, Amara's breath caught. "Hello, little ghost." Master Chen, her trainer, her torturer, the man who had made her into a weapon. He looked older, grayer, but his eyes were still cold as winter. "You've caused us considerable trouble," he continued in that soft voice that had preceded so much pain in her childhood. "I survived. That's what you taught me. I taught you obedience. You failed that lesson." His gaze shifted to Dante. "And now you've corrupted yourself further, falling in love with a target's nephew. How disappointingly predictable. Vincent Torino wasn't my target. He was my choice." Semantics. Chen pulled out a gun, but he didn't aim it at them. Instead, he set it on a crate between them. "One bullet. The ghost returns with me. Or the boy in Seattle has an unfortunate accident. Your choice." "There's a third option," Dante said calmly. "Oh? You die here tonight, and the Corvus Nigra learns what happens when they threaten my family." Chen laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You think your street thugs frighten us? We are shadows, boy. We exist in the spaces between." Baragained. The gunshot was impossibly loud in the confined space. Chen looked down at the spreading red stain on his chest, then at Amara, who held the smoking gun she'd pulled from her concealed holster. "You taught me well," she said coldly, "including the lesson that monologuing villains are easy targets." Chen fell to his knees, blood bubbling on his lips. "The organization will never stop." "Yes, they will." She knelt beside him, her voice soft but implacable. "Because I know where all the safe houses are. I know the identification protocols. I know which government officials are on your payroll, and I've already shared all of that information with interested parties. The FBI, the CIA, Interpol, they're all moving on Corvus Nigra assets as we speak. By dawn, your organization will be nothing but a memory. You destroyed everything. No, I freed everyone. Every child you're training, every assassin you've enslaved. They're all free now." Chen's eyes went wide, then empty. The master was dead, and with him, the last chain binding her to her past. Dante helped her to her feet, his arms strong and steady around her. "It's over? It's over. The boy will be safe. I've had people watching him since the day I placed him with his new family. Good people, trustworthy people. You've been building your own network." She smiled, leaning into his warmth. I learned from the best. Both the worst of humanity and the best. Which am I? Both. Neither. You're just mine. They walked out of the warehouse together, leaving Chen's body for his former organization to find if any of them remained free to look. The war was over before it truly began, ended not with armies and bloodshed but with information and strategy. That night, as they stood on the penthouse balcony watching the city lights twinkle below, Amara finally felt the weight of her past lift completely. She was no longer running, no longer hiding, no longer afraid. "What are you thinking?" Dante asked, his arms wrapped around her from behind. "That I never expected this. Love, family, a future that consists of more than just survival." She turned in his arms, looking up at the man who had seen past her masks to the woman beneath. "You gave me all of that. You gave yourself all of that. I just refused to let you do it alone." He traced her tattoo through the thin fabric of her shirt. "No more long sleeves? Never again. I'm not hiding anymore. Good. Because I want the whole world to know that the legendary ghost chose me, that the most dangerous woman alive is mine, and the most dangerous man in Chicago is mine," she countered with a smile. "Forever? Forever." They sealed the promise with a kiss that tasted of freedom and future, of dangers faced and overcome, of love found in the most unlikely circumstances. 2 years later, Amara stood in the nursery of their penthouse, watching their daughter sleep. Sophia Moretti, 6 months old, with her mother's strength and her father's intensity already visible in her tiny features. "She's going to be trouble," Dante said, joining them. "Of course she is. Look at her parents. Former assassin and current crime boss. We're definitely going to have interesting parent-teacher conferences." Amara laughed, the sound free and genuine in a way that would have been impossible before Dante entered her life. "We'll handle it. Together. Together," he agreed, wrapping his arms around both his girls. As she stood there, surrounded by love and protection she'd never dreamed possible, Amara reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From weapon to woman, from ghost to queen, from alone to loved. The tattoo on her arm had been transformed, but more importantly, so had she. The rain that had started her story 3 years ago was falling again outside, but now it sounded like blessing rather than threat. Every drop washing away more of the past, making room for the future she was building with the man who had grabbed her wrist and declared he knew who she really was. He'd been wrong that night. He'd known who she had been, but who she really was, that was something they'd discovered together. She was Amara Blackwood Moretti, former assassin, current strategist, wife, mother, protector. She was a woman who had risen from the ashes of her past to create something beautiful and dangerous and entirely her own. "I love you," she told Dante, the words still feeling like a miracle she was allowed to speak. "I love you too, Bella. Always." Outside, Chicago sprawled in all its glorious complexity, a city of shadows and light, danger and opportunity. Once, she had hidden in those shadows, afraid of being seen. Now she stood in the light, unafraid and unashamed, her transformed tattoo, a symbol not of ownership but of choice. She had been the ghost, but ghosts were dead things, trapped between worlds. She was alive, vibrantly and defiantly alive, with a future that stretched ahead full of promise and possibility. All because one night, a dangerous man had grabbed her wrist and seen not just what she was, hiding, but what she could become. "I know who you really are," he'd said. Now, finally, so did she. Epilogue. 5 years later. The art gallery opening was exactly the kind of elegant affair that made Amara want to check for exits and hidden weapons. Old habits died hard, even after years of safety. But this was important to Dante, a legitimate business venture that would launder money while actually contributing to the city's cultural landscape. "Stop scanning for threats," he murmured in her ear. "Security has it covered." "I am security," she reminded him, though she forced herself to relax. "Tonight, you're my wife. Let someone else worry about the dangers for once." It was good advice, but unnecessary. Because the moment the gallery doors opened and she saw who walked in, Amara knew danger had found them anyway. The woman was elegant, deadly, and familiar in a way that made Amara's blood run cold. Another ghost from the Corvus Nigra, one she'd thought died in the organization's collapse. "Dante," she said quietly. "I see her. Already have people moving." But the woman raised her hands, showing empty palms. I come in peace, Ghost. Or should I say, Mrs. Moretti? What do you want, Raven? To thank you. The woman's smile was genuine, surprising. When you destroyed the organization, you freed us all. I came to pay my respects to the woman who did what none of us dared dream. It was the beginning of an unexpected alliance. Over the following months, more former Corvus Nigra assassins reached out, some seeking protection, some offering their services, all grateful for the freedom Amara had given them. She helped them build new identities, new lives, new purposes beyond killing. You're building your own organization, Dante observed one evening as she coordinated safe houses for 2 more escaped assassins. I'm building a network of people who understand that redemption is possible, that we can be more than weapons. A network that happens to be incredibly skilled at violence when necessary. She smiled. That too. The Moretti family was stronger than ever, protected not just by traditional muscle but by some of the most elite former assassins in the world, all loyal to the woman who had freed them, who had shown them that there was life after death, love after violence, hope after despair. And at the center of it all, Amara stood with her tattoo proudly displayed, no longer a mark of ownership but a badge of survival. She had been grabbed, exposed, claimed, and saved, all in that single moment when Dante Moretti had wrapped his fingers around her wrist and declared he knew who she really was. He'd been right and wrong simultaneously. He'd known she was dangerous, but not that she was also desperate for connection. He'd known she was hiding, but not that she was dying to be found. He'd known she was a weapon, but not that she could also be a shield. Now, years later, as she watched him play with their children in their fortified penthouse, as she felt the baby growing inside her that would soon join their family, as she coordinated a network of reformed killers who protected instead of destroyed, she understood the truth. She wasn't who Dante had thought she was that night. She was so much more. And that revelation, that growth, that transformation, that was the real love story. Not just between her and Dante, but between who she had been forced to be and who she had chosen to become. The ghost was gone. In her place stood a queen, a mother, a protector, a survivor, and she would never hide her tattoo or herself again.